Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. Happy Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us today. Let's get the show on the road. First up at the top of the show, why children yearn for the mines. Child labor laws being examined all across the country in light of a TikTok video that went viral showing a 16-year-old boy, or maybe even younger, working at a Chick-fil-A that his dad owned. Leftists were freaking out over it. We're going to talk about why we need to send kids back to the mines, or just, slinging fries. At 7:20 this morning, we're going to talk about Megan Rapinoe. Does that name sound familiar? She's that purple-haired lady who was at the head of the women's soccer team. And she apparently says that she opposes protecting girls and women in ladies' sports. So essentially, she's arguing that men should come in and dominate women's soccer. We'll talk about that and why I'm in favor of that at 7:18. I know. Oh, also, some conservative yesterday was beating me up online. He's like, "You think women should be allowed to compete against men?" I'm like, "All right, Captain Save-A-Ho, just relax." Yeah, absolutely, I do. And I'll explain to you why at 7:20 this morning. At 7:30 today, I'm looking forward to based gigachad Tony Lavasco joining us in here today, flexing his giant Liberty muscles. Tony Lavasco will join us at 7:30 today to talk about why Missouri is based and epic and telling the ATF to screw off. When the ATF asked Camden County for information on potential gun shops, the sheriffs of Camden County flipped him the bird, told the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms that they would not be cooperating with the feds in light of Missouri's Second Amendment Preservation Act, which was, I guess, technically invalidated by a federal judge. But Missouri cops are honestly saying to themselves, you know what? We're just going to act like this law is still in force here in Missouri because we don't want to get in trouble. And I think it's a great thing. We'll talk about why Missouri is based and red-pilled with Tony Lavasco, who'll be in studio this morning with us at 7:30. At 7:51 today, we'll talk about do you know the Muffin Man? New Hampshire town makes much ado about muffin. Much much ado about a muffin mural. Apparently, some people are upset because a man put a mural of muffins above his muffin shops. And of course, city regulators are upset because they think that it consists as an advertisement. If it had been a mural of mountains and not contained any muffins in the mountains, then it would have been okay. But city regulators think it's not okay because it's a muffin. Do you know the Muffin Man? Good morning. Good morning to all of our friends who are joining us here today. Allie O'Neill, Kermode Bear, lovely Steffi. Nice to see you, my beautiful smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife. Joni Rankin is here with us. Richard Bell. Richard, it's long time no see. I hope we get to see each other again sometime soon, brother. I miss you. Andy Opperman is here with us, our local buddy here. Michael Nip as well, joining us. All of our friends here on the show, glad to have you here on the. Make sure that all of the 20 people who are watching us on YouTube, and let's see, it's usually we've been getting some good numbers over on Rumble. Make sure you're clicking like on that stream so that we can get out in other people's feeds and spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Yeah, good number of people over there on Rumble as well. Good morning to you all. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure, again, that you're clicking like on that stream. It's a free way to help support the show so we can continue to spread the message of freedom. And then at 8 o'clock this morning, I'm super excited. Judge Napolitano's first time on the program since I got back from vacation. Looking forward to hearing from Judge Napolitano about Trump filing a long shot appeal of a judge's order for Mike Pence to testify in the January 6th probe. Yeah, Donald Trump is really aching for Mike Pence to testify. And if he does, well, he's going to come. That's Donald Trump's statement right there. Yes, he is. That's right. From now on. That's right. That's right. America first, baby. So we'll talk to Judge Napolitano about that, as well as a story about Representative Jim Jordan subpoenas the FBI chief Christopher Wray over a chilling memo. FBI open up. We'll talk about that with Judge Napolitano this morning at 8 o'clock. Are you excited to hear from him? And then I believe this is his first time on the show today at 8:35. We're going to speak to Missouri State Representative Phil Cristofanelli about the push to legalize sports betting here in the state of Missouri. Can you believe it? We get tax to pay for these stadiums in the state of Missouri, and we can't even get a chance to get our money back by making a little bet on the Chiefs. Don't you wish you could go back in time, put a little bit of money on the Cubbies? Does anybody remember what that's from? The Wake Up America show is brought to you by listeners and viewers just like you. Nice to see you here with us today. Make sure, again, that you click like on that stream so that we can continue to grow our audience. All right, it's time for us to get rocking and rolling. Why children yearn for the minds. All right, so let's head over to our Twitter weirdness scene so we can see what set this off. So yesterday, this is how I became aware that we are apparently having a national debate about child labor laws. The leftists tweeted yesterday, it started going viral. The Burn identity. This is a woman who identifies as a Bernie Sanders supporter, apparently. Can you imagine imagine your identity being wrapped up in a politician, right? It's one thing. I know you could say, Austin, you're AP for liberty, your identity, but at least my identity is wrapped up in my ideals, right? It's not wrapped up into a person. But I mean, how pathetic do you have to be like, the Burn identity? I know I'm probably talking trash about half of my friends from 2008 and 2012 who had whose screen names were ronpaul2008.com or whatever, Ron Paul 2012 chick or something like that. But I mean, can we all just agree though that having a politician as your identity in 2023 is, I don't know, a little bit cringed, the opposite of based and red pilled? I don't know. So anyway, so the Burn identity tweeted yesterday, instead of paying livable wages for adults, more corporations are there lobbyists. Okay, go back to elementary school here. Are there lobbyists to push for loosening child labor laws to exploit teen cheap labor? That's why we're seeing more of these child labor bills on the state level, like in Arkansas and Iowa. It's shameful. Shameful. Oh my God, it's terrible. Panic. It's the end of the world. And another Twitter account called More Perfect Union showed a TikTok where a man was just a hornswoggle. I mean, he was bedeviled by a young Chick-fil-A worker. Take a look at this. This is the video that went viral. Oh my God, that got way too big. Hold on, let me size that down. All right, bring it back to normal. Let's watch this video. Here it is.
You work here?
Yeah.
How old are you?
13.
Oh my God. Is that even allowed?
What?
Is that even allowed?
Yeah, it is.
13?
Yeah.
But do you know like your multiplication chart?
Oh, no, I know. So my dad owns the store.
Oh, your dad owns it.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you not know? Here's a man, who's criticizing this 13-year-old kid who's working for his dad at Chick-fil-A. How old do you think this guy is? He's probably never worked a day in his life. Oh my God, 13-year-old. I'm 21 and I haven't even held a job down yet. Let's watch this again one more time here.
How old are you?
13.
Kid's 13.
Oh my God. Is that even allowed?
What?
Is that even allowed?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
13?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, when your parents
But do you know
own
like
a
your
place you're allowed to work
multiplication?
from, I think 13 years old was when my dad finally put me in the mines working for him out there at Stonegate Farm and Nursery when I was a kid. And honestly, it wasn't bad for me. It wasn't bad at all. I think it was a really good experience. But I don't know, how old were you when you got your first job? I would be curious to hear your thoughts. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Teenagers are less and less likely to meet a lot of the important milestones of independence. The young people, teenagers, are now less likely to have driver's licenses. Have you noticed this? I've known a lot of teenagers in recent decades that they don't go and get their driver's license. They're like 19 years old and they don't know how to drive. For God's sakes, what's wrong with these kids? What, working? Yes, John Rail. What, working? How dare you want a paycheck? I know some kids, like, they actually want to have a little bit of extra spending money. I know. But young people are now less likely to have a driver's license. When I was literally the day that I was 15 and a half, I went and got my learner's permit so that I could like drive with an adult. And then the day that I turned my 16th birthday, I was at the DMV getting my driver's license. I don't know about you, but I was based in Red Pill when I was 15 and a half. I think I was actually like 14 when we were on some backcountry road and we were driving the old Ford Tempo. And he's like, "Hey, you want to drive?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I got in the car and I was like 14 years old, and I was like driving around the backcountry roads, and he was teaching me how to drive. And I did learn how to drive on a manual, though. That's the thing. Is that I saw a really funny video of a carjacking the other day where like the kid, um, these two kids tried to steal somebody's car and they couldn't drive off because they couldn't drive a stick, which I thought was actually pretty hilarious. What about you? So there you go. You don't even need an anti-theft device in your vehicle these days. You just need a manual transmission, and the robbers won't be able to drive off with it. Nowadays, if you don't have to worry about robbers driving off with your car because teenagers don't even know how to drive anyway. Anyways, this one I thought was interesting too, and I'm looking at the Reason article about this. Young teenagers are also this will make conservatives happy, but it's probably not necessarily a good thing in terms of our population problem we're struggling with. But fewer American high schoolers are having sex than ever before. That used to be kind of an important milestone back in the day. Well, I remember my generation in college. It was remember the movie American Pie? That was kind of a big deal, right? You used to have sex when you were in high school if you were lucky. I wasn't lucky in high school, unfortunately. Where's my da, 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 da. I waited until marriage, until 2 years ago. Finally lost my virginity to my lovely wife. And so teens are less likely to be sexually active. I know the conservatives are shaking their head, but we've got a population problem, damn it. We need to get these kids to start doing the hanky panky. Also, teenagers are apparently less likely to have a job than their parents were. Duh. But some states have been enacting reforms that might help with the job problem in the face of and we've got a huge labor shortage here in the United States right now. Several states are liberalizing child labor laws, and they're making it easier for teenagers to enter the workforce. I do like that Reason kind of like I'm using this to gesture my little USA golf tee here. But I like that Reason Magazine is using the word liberalizing child labor laws because it's kind of like poking the eyes of the left, because that's really we all know what the word liberal really means. But the attempts to liberalize child labor laws have been minimal, but it hasn't kept critics from framing the reforms as inherently exploitative and dangerous. Oh my God. No, it's dangerous. Slinging fries and hash browns. It's so terrifying. That's why I say these kids are too soft and we need to send them back to the mines. Yeah, I say back to the mines with you. Uh, but over the past year, there have been a lot of moves apparently on this. Several states have proposed reforms to their child labor laws in an attempt to ease some of the labor shortages that the United States is dealing with. Makes a lot of sense to me, but the left is freaking out. Last year, I think New Jersey enacted a bill allowing teenagers 16 and older to work up to 50 hours a week. God, no, no. How dare you? In Ohio, the legislature is considering a similar proposal allowing 14 and 15-year-olds to work later hours as long as the parents consent, which honestly makes a lot of sense. Last month, Arkansas's governor, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, ignited criticism when she signed a bill that removed the state's requirements for 14 and 15-year-olds to obtain government permits to work. Government permits? Good God, what is this? Soviet Russia? Harvard labor researcher by the name of Terry Gerstein. What do you think she had to say about it? Was she like, we need to allow free market capitalism to work? Of course not. Harvard researcher. She says when child labor violations come to light, especially horrifying ones, shouldn't elected officials strengthen laws and fund enforcement rather than allow more children to be exploited? I need the sad, sad one. So sad. Yes. So the video that I showed you, that one that went viral, so it doesn't show any child labor violations. The teenager says that his father owns the store. Children are legally allowed to work at businesses that are owned by their parents. But the pro-union nonprofit that posted that video is like tried to frame this as the teenager working for his parents was a bad thing. The National Restaurant Association, a lobby group funded by big food corporations, is a key driver behind new bills letting kids work dangerous jobs. I mean, come on. Dangerous jobs. Slinging hash browns is a dangerous job. For the love of God, I would send these kids back to the copper mines. And yet the left is freaking out about these kids. Okay, maybe I wouldn't send kids back to the copper mines. So, but I would say that working a food job is not that dangerous at all. God, I'll show you a dangerous job. I'll tell you what, my sister, she still works for my dad right now. I guarantee you that she's in a much more dangerous environment than people who work in fast food, to be honest. And she was working there as a young lassie, a young lady. What do you think? Exploitation? Should we send the kids back to the mines? What say you? Love to hear your thoughts about that. When we come back, why I am in favor of transgenders in women's sports. I say give the women what they want. Give it to them good and hard. When we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. We're so glad to have you here today. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching us over on YouTube or on Facebook or on Rumble, make sure you click like on that video stream to help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. We're excited to have Tony Lavasco going to be joining us here at 7:30 this morning. I'm going to ask him about Missouri refusing to cooperate with the feds in the enforcement of federal gun laws. Based gigachad Tony Lavasco will be joining us here in a little less than 10 minutes or so. Before we do, though, I thought this might be a good time for us to have a little discussion about, well, the transgender issue. I know it's like every single day. I've been trying to actively avoid it because I'm so sick of that dude that the conservatives keep posting in my timeline over and over. Conservatives are making bank posting about that Dylan Mulvaney guy or whatever, stuff like that. It's like the outrage machine is perpetual. And you know what? I don't want to feed into it. So I'm going to avoid talking about the whole Bud Light thing. I know it's a moneymaker, it's a cash cow. And again, it's conservatives are making more money off of that than the left is, to be quite honest. So you know what? Have at it. I'm sick of it. I'm talking about something else, even though it's in the same veins. Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird are among the athletes who signed a letter opposing the Protection of Girls and Women in Sports Act. Megan Rapinoe, Sue Bird, Becky Sauerbrunn were among the 40 professional Olympic and Paralympic athletes who co-signed a letter to House lawmakers in opposition to what is being called the Protection of Girls and Women in Sports Act. Isn't that interesting? So this is an athlete group that supports LGBTQ plus initiatives. I am a big fan of the LG HDTV community myself. That was a joke. Athlete Ally is the name of this group. They sent a letter on Monday to Sports Illustrated. The athletes believe the bill wouldn't protect women in sports, but rather exclude women and girls from getting mental and physical health benefits. My guess is that the mental and physical health benefits would be that if they have to play on a level playing field with biological males, they're going to have to work harder, which, you know what? I'm for it. Good for you, ladies. They say that we believe that gender equity in sports is critical. Oh, you're going to get equity. You're going to get equity right in the face, ladies, when we make you eat the dirt, which is why we urge policymakers to turn their attention and effort to the causes women athletes have been fighting for decades, including equal pay. You would get equal pay, ladies, if more people watched your games, but they don't. But if we have biological men competing against women in women's soccer, I would watch that. Wouldn't you? Honestly, I think it would be kind of awesome. I really enjoy don't you enjoy the UFC fights where it's the dude fighting against the women and he just like, it's like, if domestic abuse is your thing, this is called septum, by the way. Uneven implementation of Title IX and a lack of access and equity for girls of color and girls with disabilities, to name only a few. When has there ever been a problem with integrating minorities into sports? If anything, we need to get some more white people into basketball. Don't you think? Isn't there a lack of white people in the NBA? Have you noticed? We need to get the professionals on that. They don't complain about that, do they? They say our deepest hope is that transgender and intersex kids will never have to feel the isolation, exclusion, and othering that this bill is seeking to enshrine into law, the letter reads. The Biden administration proposal to forbid outright bans on transgender athletes drew scrutiny last week. The proposed rule established that blanket bans would violate Title IX. It would be difficult for schools to ban, for example, a transgender girl from playing on a girls' basketball team. I know that conservatives don't like my view on this one, and liberals won't like my view on this one for different views. But I must reiterate that I absolutely believe and agree with Megan Rapinoe on this. That we should not discriminate against transgenders, and we should allow these biological males to play in women's sports. Not because I want it necessarily, or because I think it's a good idea. It's a terrible idea. However, this is what these women want. This is what Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird and Becky Sauerbrunn and all these ladies in the World Cup soccer want. Let's give them, I say we give them what they want, what they deserve. And may they get it good and hard. It sounds to me like based gigachad. Tony Lavasco is walking in. He's going to be here in just a few minutes. We're going to talk to him. I'll ask him about this, what he thinks about the whole transgender sports issue. He's a legislator. Get his thoughts on this one. What do you think? What do you think he's going to say? But first, I want to ask him about Missouri telling the feds to screw off when it came to enforcing federal gun control laws. Missouri being both based and epic. Well, we need somebody who is based and epic himself to come into the studio. And we'll talk to him in just a few when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How are you feeling so far today? Good, good. Well, I'm glad the studio audience is lively. How about the audience over online? The only way that you can let us know how you're feeling today is to click like over there in the feed if you're watching us over on YouTube or on Facebook or maybe even on Twitch or on Rumble. Make sure that you click like on the stream so that we can spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Did you see that story that I was talking about with Hannah Cox yesterday about how the FBI is saying that people who use the words based and red pilled and things like that online, like words like Chad, might be signs that you're an online extremist? Well, watch out, FBI. Look out. Missouri officials refuse to work with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, saying that all federal so-called gun laws are unconstitutional. That is so based, so red-pilled that I need a gigachad. I need a gigachad in the form of Tony Lavasco, who's joining us now live in studio. He's based, he's red-pilled, and he's a gigachad. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Austin.
There's your new theme song. How you doing, brother?
Doing well.
Good, good. Glad to have you here today, Tony. Thanks so much for joining us. So, my understanding was that the latest news was that that Missouri had our SAPA law, Second Amendment Preservation Act, had it overturned by a federal judge, so it would no longer be in effect. But Camden County officials are what? What is this? I'm confused.
Yeah, so my understanding is there is a temporary stay, I believe, on enforcing it to a small degree. We expect that to be vacated somewhat rapidly. We kind of expected this moving forward. Honestly, there's some hope that it might ultimately escalate to the Supreme Court because the argument is very sound. We're on excellent legal ground. The portion of the bill that everyone talks about and that the ATF is whining about that says that federal gun laws are null and void, it doesn't matter, right? It's basically part of the preamble. It's explaining why the legislature is passing this law and why we believe it's important. We're not pretending that we can wave a magic wand and somehow dissolve the ATF. I mean, that'd be fantastic, but can't legally do that. What we can do is say that we're not going to spend a penny of Missouri taxpayer dollars helping the ATF do what the ATF does, which is infringe on your rights. The idea behind the Second Amendment Preservation Act is that the federal government is free to coordinate with local and state officials to enforce Missouri law. But if they want to enforce federal law where it conflicts with Missouri statute, they got to pay for that themselves. We're not going to help them with that. And that's all the law does. That's very constitutional. The anti-commandeering doctrine has been long established that we can do that sort of thing. And yet, for political reasons, the Biden administration, the ATF, has decided that they're just going to read that preamble part and act as if that our musings about the purpose of federal gun laws are the actual meat in the legislation, and it's not.
So I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but I do think that this particular case does deserve a little bit of us kind of niggling around the edges, and so people understand this. But as I understand it, what the ATF was doing was actually trying to help people who wanted to open up new gun shops in Camden County by doing research on the zoning laws in the area. So in order for the ATF to grant permits, they have to know what the local zoning laws are. So they were asking, the local authorities, hey, what are the zoning laws? Because we actually want to help them to open up new gun shops. So in this scenario, Tony, it seems as if the SAPA law is getting in the way of us actually opening up more gun shops.
Anytime you've got a wide-reaching law like SAPA, you're going to have agencies that decide to interpret in the least generous way possible in order to make their point. I think that's what's happened here. There's nothing about local zoning laws being interpreted by the ATF that is an enforcement of a federal provision.
Right.
I don't see how SAPA would be triggered by that. Now, if you were going to argue that the ATF was working with local officials to use zoning to deny a firearms license or whatnot, well, then yeah, I would imagine that would be triggered. Although even then, the ATF is free to come into Missouri using their own resources, their own agents, and as long as they're spending their own money, they can enforce whatever federal laws they want. We can't stop them from doing that, unfortunately, in Missouri. I don't see any reason possibly why the ATF couldn't make some phone calls and check with local zoning officials to see what a particular property is zoned at. That's not the state expending any money, nor is the local municipality doing so. So I don't think it applies.
So is this kind of like a case of maybe a little bit of grandstanding on behalf of like Camden County, just being able to if you have the opportunity to tell the feds to screw off, then
that is my guess. I'm not read into the specifics specifics, but that's my guess. And you know what? If you'd like to grandstand to give the feds the finger, I would support that in principle. So.
That's why he's based. He's a gigachad. He's Tony Lavasco. If you have a question for Tony, send us a text 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. So I guess to wrap this up, the hope is that we take this to the Supreme Court. Is that in the works? I mean, how does this?
We'll see. I mean, there's quite a bit of process that would unfold before that. I'm not an attorney, as you know, so the specifics will depend on a lot of aspects of the case I haven't quite followed. My understanding, though, is that if it were to make it to the Supreme Court, the idea is that we could get a definitive ruling on kind of the limits of the anti-commandeering doctrine as previously established by the courts. And I think that could be interesting, and I think we're very on solid ground there.
Okay, well, I'd like to move on to another topic, as exciting as that is. And Tony, I'd like to talk to you about child labor laws. One of my favorite tweets that I saw recently was that the popularity of Minecraft proves that children yearn for the mines. Child labor laws, Tony. I'd like to talk about that because the left is freaking out because they saw this teenager on TikTok who was 13 years old and he's working for his dad's Chick-fil-A. And the left is saying, "Oh, these teens are being exploited because they're having to work in these dangerous environments." I mean, how dangerous is Chick-fil-A? What, are you going to burn your hand on the fryer or something like that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably not the most amazing environment to work in. I get that. No offense to Chick-fil-A, but the issue here is what are the lines between parents and children making decisions for what's best for their family, and where is it right for government to jump in and say, "Hey, no, you can't do that." I don't think working at Chick-fil-A is where the line is. If it was an actual mine, you might have an argument there. The reality is kids have worked for their parents for generations. Long before we were around, they were doing hard work in the fields, working on farms. I don't necessarily think it's a fantastic thing for a child to be forced by their parents to labor at a young age by any means. But the reality is some families do need the support. They do need some extra income. Sometimes they just can't get by.
Yeah, you had to.
Right, it's not a choice.
Right. You had 10 kids, 5 of them died before they reached the age of 6, and the other 3 that were males would have to work in the field with you because that was the only way you could get by.
Yeah, and I think the left would probably prefer folks to jump on public assistance than to have their kids work in their family business. I think that's unfortunate. I think that working at a young age in reasonable occupations that are not causing a lot of danger is good for character, and it does build responsibility.
So you say reasonable occupations, the kid's not in danger. So if the kid's 13 and his dad owns a Chick-fil-A, that's fine. But if I own a copper mine, and I want my kid and my 13-year-old boy to work in the copper mine with me, you're going to step in the way with that?
I'm not familiar with the specifics of copper mines. My inclination is they're probably more dangerous than Chick-fil-A's, but I haven't been there, so you never know. But look, I think this is all about being reasonable. I think just like any other instances of child abuse or whatnot, circumstances are going to matter. And if you take a wide, sweeping brush and say, well, you can never do that, you're probably not going to get it right.
Yes, well, now maybe we'll have to take away his base gigachad status there. I say abolish all. I say child labor laws are killing this country, just like the great Ron Swanson. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here today. Happy Wednesday. I'm speaking to one of our favorite guests, Missouri State Representative Tony Lavasco. We're talking about child labor laws. We're talking about telling the ATF to screw off from the state of Missouri. And since Tony is a state representative, that makes him a legislator. He's a great person to talk to about these things. Tony, many of the state legislatures are working on trying to, and then federally there's a push to try and ban biological males from competing in women's sports. The conservatives are against it because they're like, we have to protect the women's, and the left is for it because they're like, we have to protect the transgenders, and I'm for it because I'm like, you know what? This is the feminist movement that wants this, which is mostly comprised of women. If the ladies want it, I say give it to them good and hard. What say you, Tony?
I don't care. I'm probably just supposed to care quite a bit about this because, I'm Republican. But the reality is, you want to deal with minors having life-changing surgeries. We can talk about that. I think that's an important issue, that there is a government role in intervention. Whether or not somebody plays soccer or not really just doesn't interest me.
You see, you can't be like that though, Tony, because the people with kids, especially, like they're worried about their daughters. They're worried about their daughters going out in the field and having to play against a biological male, and like, how are you supposed to stand by on the soccer field and with a straight face and watch your daughter get just dunked on, whether it's, basketball or soccer or whatever? I mean, how are you supposed to What is a parent supposed to do about that? I mean, like, it's a joke, Tony.
Well, I think the real problem is why on earth are you having your daughter play soccer instead of working in your mind? I think we've established that as the responsibility.
Gigachad moment. Base Gigachad moment. All right, your status has been restored. But it is an issue. I mean, the parents aren't going to give up on this, Tony. I know you don't care, but you've got to deal with it as a legislature. How are you going to vote?
Look, I think the issue is constructing these bills such that they're within the scope of government. I have no problem voting for a bill that says in a publicly financed public school or even a charter school that's getting state money, here's what the guidelines are. Here's what you got to do. You can't, have folks mixed in gender sports. I get that. And I would vote for a bill like that. The problem is most of the legislation that we've seen moving decides that they're going to try to extend this to private schools. And they're going to say that, we're going to fine you if your private Catholic school decides to let a trans kid play soccer. And to be honest, that's just outside the scope of government. I won't do that.
Yeah, that's the problem is that legislation is like when they said that they wanted to ban TikTok, it's like, I see all these conservatives who are like, yeah, we're going to ban TikTok. And then the bill that we get is like essentially the Patriot Act on steroids. Like the reality of legislation is you should always assume that a bill that you're in favor of is going to be written by your worst enemy.
Yeah, absolutely. And never assume that the title has absolutely anything to do with the bill.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You can text the show today at 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from our audience. Again, you can text us at 573-319-1586. So what about the bill to ban gender transition surgeries and things like that? The one that actually I know you care about, that one. What's happening with that in Missouri?
So we've got two different versions of it. The House version, I still think needs a little bit of work. We did the perfection on that yesterday. Senate version has its own problems, but I think is a lot closer to being something that I'm excited about supporting. The idea in my mind is that we ought to be saying folks need to be waiting until they're 18 to make decisions that are going to affect their body permanently. I think that's a reasonable place to draw the line. And I think that you also have to consider that there are folks that unfortunately have already gone down this road that are already receiving various types of procedures and treatment. And I think we don't want the government necessarily stopping them in the middle of that and saying, hey, you got to go back today. I think that, that could cause unforeseen consequences that itself could be harmful. And so you got to balance that because ultimately we are interested in the, what's best for the kids and what is not going to cause future harm. And I think it's got to be nuanced as far as the language. I think the Senate bill reaches that balance about as good as the General Assembly is capable of. I mean, it's not perfect. There's a stupid sunset clause and a few other things that I don't care for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall it's something I could vote for. The House bill was almost there. It was really close. I voted present ultimately just because, I appreciated that the bill sponsor tried to get it there. But the House is a different body than the Senate. And quite frankly, they were just a little bit less interested in the nuances. So I think we'll be good at the end of the year, though.
So Tony, it's been a little while since we've seen you. What else is new with you? What's going on? Are there any of your own bills or anything that you're working on trying to advance? Any news?
A little bit. I haven't had as much success this year as previous years, just because we've got a new speaker, new administration, got to kind of adjust to the changes and different style sets that folks are doing, and so I'm still kind of learning that process. But I do have some stuff moving along. My bill that would allow people to do a little bit more work in their own homes and get their own building permits is moving through on a couple different vehicles. My effort to legalize or at the very least decriminalize brass knuckles has been attached to a couple different bills. We'll see if that makes it through on the other side. Show it this year because we think people are just kind of tired of hearing about it. So.
All my brass knuckles identify as paperweights in the state of Missouri.
Absolutely. That's something that you see that comes up regularly that, if these are illegal, why can you buy them at any gun show? And the answer is, well, that's not brass.
It's a paperweight.
Right.
Yes, it is. Tony Lavasco, he is an epic based and red-pilled gigachad. Thanks so much for joining us on the show today, Tony. Appreciate you coming in here. You look handsome. Thanks so much. We appreciate your time today. Thanks for fighting for freedom. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Yeah, tell Ava I said hello. All right, what's coming up next? Much Ado About Muffin. A man who bakes muffins in a town in New Hampshire is having to fight for his life after he built a mural on his own private property that had muffins on it. And the town council said, no. Do you know the Muffin Man? We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. How are you feeling today? Glad everybody's doing well. Nice to have you here on the program. Did you like the interview with Tony Lavasco? He's always so good. We love having him. I think we have some of the best guests in morning talk shows. Don't you agree? If you think so, then definitely make sure you click like on that stream. Click the like button to help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty so we can get the message out to more people. We certainly appreciate that very much. Okay. Also, I got a text message to somebody. They really liked my shirt. They got one as well. This is the neon retro firearms machine gun collection over here. This is the baseball style tee that I got for myself. Honestly, I know I'm like trying to sell these things, but the fact is that it's super comfortable. So if you've been thinking about getting one of these awesome neon retro firearms machine gun shirts, definitely get the baseball one, in my opinion, because this is super soft, silky, very comfortable shirt. Summer's coming. You definitely want to wear something lighter, a little bit more fun. And you got to kind of have guts to wear a shirt like this. I totally understand. But if you do, if you've got the guts, the balls to wear a shirt like this, then I highly recommend it. The baseball cut version. Very soft, very silky, very smooth. And I like to wear a like neon pink shirt underneath it just because it kind of pops. So check it out at ap4libertyshop.com. That's ap4libertyshop.com. The Neon Retro Machine Gun Collection available now. Do you know the Muffin Man? Well, a New Hampshire town knows the Muffin Man, and they don't like what they see. Are they making much ado about Muffin? Levitt's Country Baker has kind of been a staple of this New Hampshire town for a number of years, apparently 45 years, I think. Then their founders decided to retire, and a longtime customer kind of snapped it up. He's a guy by the name of Sean Young. He's now embroiled in a First Amendment fight and has to choose between self-censorship or fines that could ruin his business. It started last year because they wanted to sort of brighten up the facade above their front door. And so a friend introduced him to a local high school art teacher, and with the idea that maybe they should just do a really cool mural there for the students as an art project. So Sean and the teacher agreed to that, and the students came and they painted something that was actually totally perfect. It was a New England mountain landscape, but the mountains are made of donuts, muffins, and pastries. Sean loved it. The kids are proud of it. The locals enjoy it. But here's the problem. The government doesn't like it. So just a few days after the painting was unveiled, the local code enforcer, yes, showed up to tell Sean that the painting was not a mural, but an illegal sign. Why? Well, because the painting features baked goods, which Levitt sells. So if it had actually featured real mountains, or if the same painting were on a business other than a bakery, then they would call it a mural and let it stay up. What is the difference between a mural and a sign? It shouldn't matter. But, if you think about it, the First Amendment, it doesn't distinguish between art and commercial signs. It doesn't say, oh, well, you have free speech unless you're trying to sell something, in which case you don't have free speech. Commercial speech of any kind really is protected by the First Amendment, or at least it's supposed to be, but not in the world that we live in, unfortunately, anymore. So the question is, will he prevail? The Institute for Justice, which is one of the premier libertarian legal law firms in the country, is working on his case. So there's a good chance that they might prevail. But if they don't, this could have really serious ramifications for businesses across the country, because how businesses sort of present themselves to their communities is a really important aspect of economic liberty. And although municipalities do have some authority to regulate the size and placement of signs, they can't just pick and choose whom these rules apply to based on the message being conveyed. That's censorship, and it's something that we should not stand for. All right, but we got Judge Napolitano coming up here in about 5 minutes. But before we do, real quick story that I was reading yesterday. I always like to keep up with all my latest gold news. And I found this story yesterday. A man found gold bars and coins worth $147,000 during a home clear out. This is like everybody's dream come true. So this guy who lived in Germany struck gold while clearing out his property when a haul worth an estimated $147,000 was discovered. Can you imagine? Officers in Heidelberg, southwest Germany, were left amazed when a 29-year-old man handed over gold coins and bars to officers at the Heidelberg Süd station. The police statement, translated from German to English, read it was a small treasure consisting of gold bars and coins worth over 135,000 euros. That's 147,000 bucks. The young man found it out. Who originally owned the valuables is still being determined. If it's not stolen goods, then the honest finder can look forward to a handsome finder's reward. So the thing that just drives me crazy about this one is, like, why would you have to take it to the cops? Well, probably because they're terrified of finding out that it was stolen. So I don't know. There's rules like that here in the United States too when it comes to things like that. It kind of sucks. It's like buried treasure and different things like that. And we have mineral rights laws and all that kind of stuff. Frankly, I think that he should get to keep the whole thing. What do you think? Well, if you don't have a haul of gold in your backyard, you're going to have to buy some yourself. And I highly recommend that you check out my friends over at Lear Capital at their website, learaustin.com. How do you spell learaustin.com? Well, it's I'm glad you asked, Tubby. It's LEARAUSTIN.com. Bury some gold in your backyard. Maybe your son or your grandson will find it one day and he'll have to turn it over to the police. Just kidding. Or if you don't want to have to do that and you don't want to take the risk and you want to be able to benefit from your own investments into gold and silver, invest in a gold or silver IRA. Austin, I don't know how to invest in a gold and silver IRA. Well, listen, ignorance is no excuse. So get educated. Call my friends over at Lear Capital at 1-800-885-2175, and they will send you a free gold information packet. They will do the same thing if you visit the website. And I know you're like, oh my God, I'm scared of talking on the phone. They are super nice. They're friends of mine. And if you call and tell them, hey, friends with Austin, saw his advertisement on the show for your company. I want to learn more. I'm nervous. I'm hesitant. I'm not sure necessarily I want to buy, but I'm curious about it. They will take good care of you. Just tell them I sent you. Call that number, 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175. Now imagine if I was in the same situation as the Muffin Man from New Hampshire, and they were like, the government stepped in and was like, we don't like your gold background here. This constitutes too much. We don't like the gold finger gifs that you've set up with Austin Powers. We don't like the I love gold statement down at the very bottom. We don't like that. We want you to put up a different sign. It's too commercial. That would not be fun. Yeah, that would suck. That's the government for you, though. Check them out again at 1-800-885-2175. I'm going to go get Judge Andrew Napolitano. We're going to talk to him about Trump wanting Mike Pence to testify on the January 6th committee. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Any real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Oh, it feels like I was gone for so long. For some people, they said, Austin, you need to come back from Japan. Well, I'm back now, and I'm excited to talk to my next guest, who I missed the absolute most of all of my guests. You know who it is, the premier freedom fighter in the United States and Japan, in the world, Judge Andrew Napolitano, who's joining us right now. Konnichiwa, Napolitano-san.
Ite takimasu. You're that's all I know in Japanese. You're putting goosebumps on my arms with these introductions, but thank you, Austin. I missed you as well. I miss these segments. I love them and crave them.
It's always an intellectual feast with Judge Napolitano on the Wake Up America show, Judge, and we're looking forward to learning, too, a little bit more about what's coming up on your show, Judging Freedom, here in just a few minutes. But first, I'd like to start with the big news of the day. Donald Trump files what you consider to be a long-shot appeal of a judge's order regarding Mike Pence's ability to testify in the January 6th probe. What are the implications of this, Judge? I mean, if Donald Trump did manage to get that to happen, would that be a huge win for him? And what would that really mean for the country?
I think that the government's case against Trump on January 6th is a very strong one. But Mike Pence would be the icing on the cake, because Mike Pence would be able to tell the grand jury what Trump told Pence before, during, and after the events of January 6th. The only time that the grand jury cannot ask Pence about is when he was physically on the floor of the House of Representatives, not actually on the floor, but up at the Speaker's podium. He's presiding over a joint session of Congress, performing a duty commanded by the Constitution, whereby in the presence of a joint session of Congress, the electoral votes should be counted. The court ruled that in that respect, he was entitled to the protections that members of Congress have, which under the speech and debate clause of the Constitution insulates them from having to justify, explain, talk about what they did and heard and saw on the floor of the House. But everything else he has to testify to. Now, this has already been ruled on by a trial judge and then by a 3-judge appellate panel, which ruled 3-0 that Trump does not have executive privilege, and Pence's only privilege is that tiny area that I told you about, what he observed on the floor of the House. Trump comes along, not Pence, Trump, and enters the case and says, I want to file an appeal to the full United States Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, not just the 3 judges that ruled against Pence, but all 13 judges, because I want this issue of executive privilege aired again. So this tells me 2 things. It tells me that Trump is deeply concerned about what Pence would tell the grand jury. It also tells me yet again, I could say it a 3rd time, poor lawyering on the part of Trump's lawyers. You can't enter a case at the appellate stage unless you were also involved at the trial level. You can't just walk into somebody else's appeal and say, hey, listen to me. Because Trump was not involved in the trial level or at the 3-judge panel appellate level, he has no standing to file this. That's why it's an extreme long shot. He's likely to lose. He's likely to lose so bad he might actually be assessed legal fees, which federal courts can do when you file frivolous applications, of which this is one.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano, talking a little bit about Trump's legal woes. In regards to the political question of this case against him regarding Stormy Daniels and things, Judge, on the political side of things, MAGA Republicans seem to believe that this is the kind of thing that will energize the base or energize voters to get out the vote for Donald Trump in the Republican primary, which he is competing in right now. I don't really share them. I don't share their zeal for Donald Trump, although he certainly wasn't the worst president in American history. But I don't see. I don't see Americans sort of coming out and seeing this prosecution of Trump, whether or not they think it's political or not, as something that would inspire them to vote for him. Do you?
Well, yet again, I share your views. I think this will energize his base, but just his base. It will not energize other traditionalist Republicans, whether they call themselves conservatives or libertarians or moderates. By traditionalist Republican, I mean traditional in the Republican Party model. I just don't think so. I think you'll see soon Republicans looking for somebody else. But in terms of the MAGA people, Make America Great Again, Trump's acronym, I think that those people will look at Trump as a martyr. But the Democrats really can't lose here. If this were to energize the Republican base for Trump, well, that's the only way, in my view. Now, you're asking me for politics here, not law, but that's the only way, in my view, Joe Biden wins, which is if Trump is the Republican nominee, because then the issue is not Biden's abysmal stewardship of the Constitution. Then the issue is Trump's character, personality, and criminality, on which against which most of the country will happily vote.
I hate to spring things on you, Judge, but it called into up a reminder of sort of the tension between MAGA Republicans and libertarian Republicans. I'm not sure if you saw recently the conflict between Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri and Rand Paul on the floor of the Senate regarding the Restrict Act, the push to ban TikTok. Were you following any of that kerfuffle between the two
No,
of them?
no, but you can imagine how I feel, since one of these is my hero, and the other is a goat, not as in greatest of all time, unless you mean greatest of all time fools. Josh Hawley would be the goat in that category. And this is not because you ran against them. I love you and would take a bullet for you. You know that. It's because he is a reprehensible steward of the Constitution and the free market. Reprehensible. But anyway, what did they fight about?
Well, so the argument was about the ban for TikTok, which, you know, Senator Rand Paul was arguing against, Josh Hawley was arguing in favor of. But what there was this extreme naivete that I had seen amongst the MAGA Republicans, many of whom, some of them are even fans of myself, just because of my, you know, they have you know, a semi love of the Constitution, at least when it suits them, you know, which I don't know how much that makes them different from neocons. Nevertheless, you know, many of them were on my social media pages saying things like, "Yes, we need to ban TikTok." You know, they were all in support of Senator Josh Hawley's push to ban TikTok. But the bill that we got, and this is why I called it naivete, the bill that we got was the Restrict Act, which many people were calling essentially the Patriot Act 2.0 for the internet. Right? It always just seems as if the best intentions, whether it's the neocons and the war in Iraq or MAGA Republicans and the push to ban TikTok, their naivete just continually generates every generation in this push for the desire to have government to do something that's in our best interest, something that seems like it would be good for us. You know,
So,
maybe, but in reality, the government takes more power and turns this against us.
so I agree with everything you just said, except naivete. I don't think they're naive at all. They are not interested, Josh Hawley and his crew, in shrinking the government like you and I and Rand Paul. They are interested in controlling the government. They're just interested in their version of government. They are no better than the Democrats whom they demonize. In fact, to some extent, the Democrats are more intellectually honest because they admit they want bigger government and they want to control the bigger government. The Republicans just want their version of government that they can control. The big government, the war party, just thumbs its nose at the Constitution, right and left, day and night, all the time. People like Rand Paul and Thomas Massey and Andy Biggs and some of his colleagues in the House, occasionally Mike Lee in the Senate, are the only people who understand what the Constitution means and take their oaths to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution with seriousness. People like Josh Hawley, as I said, are just interested in controlling the government, which means controlling us, not in shrinking the government and liberating us.
When senators like Hawley and progressive Republicans are confronted with libertarian arguments or libertarianism on its face, Judge, their argument is simply that it's not liberty to be controlled by corporations, that it's not that your liberty is restricted when corporations can control what you say or what you do or what you can post on the internet, that you can't if you can't use your free speech, if you're effectively silenced online, then your liberty is being restricted. So that's normally what their comeback is whenever they're confronted with libertarian arguments. They say that corporations are capable of curtailing your liberty as much, if not more, than some governments. Is that not the case?
No, it is not the case. I mean, I can choose to deal with Google or I can choose not to. Now, Google effectively has no competition, but there are other means to get messages out there which do not involve using these corporations. But the whole purpose of the First Amendment, which they have sworn to preserve, protect, and defend, is to keep the government out of the business of speech. If Fox becomes the king of the hill because a lot of people watch it and a lot of companies advertise on it, that was done using freedom to do so. All I have to do is change the channel, so to speak, press the button on my remote or touch my flat screen. The government, I can't escape. The taxes, I can't escape. There are regulations I can't escape. If I try to do that, I'll be escaping from jail.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to the inimitable Judge Andrew Napolitano. He's the host of the Judging Freedom podcast, and he writes an excellent weekly column at judgenap.com that you can read. I was reading his column yesterday that is forthcoming, and it's regarding the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. One sentence in particular stood out to me, Judge. The question that you posed: are American boys using American military hardware to shoot American ammunition at Russian boys? What's the answer?
In a word, yes. The delivery of HIMARS, a very sophisticated sort of cross between artillery and tank. Tank because it's mobile, artillery because it shoots very devastating missiles. So sophisticated that Americans are operating these HIMARS in Ukraine and choosing the targets on their computer screens. And then the HIMARS are triggered by Americans in Poland. American boys using American military gear, firing American ammo at Russian boys, yes. American intel stealing Russian intel, giving it to Russia's opponent, Ukraine. If that doesn't define America fighting a war against Russia, an illegal war against Russia, then I don't know what does. We're just waiting. I don't want this to happen, but we're waiting for the first American to come home in a body bag. The documents that were revealed last Tuesday and again on Good Friday show that American Special Forces and their British counterparts, about 50 in number, are physically present on the ground in Ukraine. Not authorized by the British Parliament, not authorized by the American Congress, denied by the British Defense Ministry. Whoop! Silence by the DOD. The DOD has already lied. I keep running this clip, and I'll give it to you if you want to see it. It's a very mild-mannered Mississippi gentleman, Senator Roger Wicker, asking Secretary of Defense Austin about the prospects for victory. And of course, Secretary Austin sounds like Victoria Nuland. Oh, yeah, Ukraine's going to win, and the spring's going to be good, the winter will be even better. He said all this when he already knew that the government itself is aware of the 7-to-1 kill ratio. 7 Ukrainian soldiers killed by Russian troops for every 1 Russian soldier killed by Ukrainian troops. Do the math. This can't last much longer. He was already aware of what these documents reveal, which is that by the end of May, the Ukrainian air defenses will be degraded down to 0. He was already aware that what he was saying to Congressman Wicker, and your buddy Josh Hawley was right there, the Senate Armed Services Committee, was lying. So when a courageous person reveals that the government has been lying about war and killing, it's time to mark that courageous person as a hero, and that person should not be prosecuted, but should be protected under the Pentagon Papers case, like Daniel Ellsberg and the New York Times and the Washington Post were. Ellsberg only escaped prosecution because, as you may recall from history, I lived through this, you weren't born yet. During Ellsberg's trial, he's the thief who gave the documents about LBJ and his generals lying to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, and the Supreme Court said, once the publisher gets it and it's materially of interest to the public, it's fair game. Doesn't matter how the publisher got it. It's lawful to publish it. After this, Ellsberg was prosecuted for espionage. During his trial, literally during the trial, the FBI broke into his psychiatrist's office. You can't imagine this today, because today they would do it by going into the psychiatrist's laptop remotely and digitally. But they broke into the office and stole Ellsberg's medical records. A courageous federal judge said, "I've had enough of this. I'm dismissing the indictment," and the feds did not appeal.
Crazy story, and definitely one that goes into more detail in your weekly column at judgenap.com. I highly recommend it. If you have a question for Judge Napolitano, you can text the show. 573-319-1586 is the text line. Again, that is 573-319-1586. We'd love to hear from you more about this. Make sure also that you click like over on the stream so that we can get more of your opinions in this show as well. Judge, any predictions about where this conflict between Russia and Ukraine ends? Does it escalate?
I think it will end when President Zelensky realizes he has no more assets left, and NATO gives up the ghost. The problem for Joe Biden is that he hasn't built an off ramp for himself. You know, he's sent his Secretary of State out there to demonize President Putin and Russia, and the Secretary of State Antony Blinken has sent Victoria Nuland, the number 3 person in the State Department, to make extreme statements. She sounds like the president of Poland, or she sounds like Zelensky himself when she says we won't rest until the Ukraine flag flies over Crimea. Over Crimea. I mean, the chances of Ukraine winning back Crimea are about as good as the chances of Mexico winning back Arizona. I mean, this is just crazy. Crimea has been a part of Russia since Catherine the Great, which is 40 years before we rebelled against George III. I mean, these people just don't know history and don't know reality. This will end when Putin declares victory. He doesn't want Kyiv. He just wants the eastern portions. Why does he want the eastern portions? Because we keep surrounding the western border of Russia with sophisticated military equipment aimed at Moscow. Imagine if the Chinese showed up in Guadalajara and aimed similar equipment at Dallas. Then we'd know how Putin feels.
Judge, back to the political question regarding all of this. I thought it was interesting that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis took a more dovish approach to the war in Ukraine versus perhaps Nikki Haley in the Republican Party, who took a more hawkish approach. She seems to be much more the standard or the stereotypical neocon on this issue. Donald Trump, for all of our differences with him, seems to take a more dovish approach when it comes to war. Do you think that, in regards to Ron DeSantis, though, that the reason that he takes that that less interventionist approach to Ukraine is more of a reading of the room versus, actual beliefs regarding our interventions in Ukraine? Because my belief is that Nikki Haley is kind of like the John Bolton who's running right now, if you will. Whereas DeSantis, I kind of have a little bit of difficulty determining if he truly believes that the United States should not be funding the war in Ukraine, or if he's just sort of reading the tea leaves because the Republican Party, more Trumpish, is less interventionist than it was under the Bush years. What are your thoughts on
You know,
that?
that's a great question. I don't know the answer. I can't get into his head. My recollection of him, and I spoke to him a number of times when he was a guest at Fox, and you and I were working there. My recollection of him is as a typical traditional go along, get along, center right Republican in the House of Representatives, voting for TARP, voting, in favor of however Republican leadership wanted him to vote. And I never discussed foreign affairs with him. If he's sincere, my hat is off to him. I mean, there's a lot of other reasons that I couldn't vote for him, but on this, if he's sincere, my hat is off to him. He has been excoriated by, National Review and all the crazy right-wing neocon Republican press out there for suggesting this. Obviously, I think he's right on this issue, but whether it's sincerely held or politically motivated, I don't know.
Judge, a couple of quick things before we let you go. One, who do you read these days? When you and I worked together back during the Freedom Watch days, I know we used to read LouRockwell.com every single day, and I remember I think you actually bought me a subscription to The Economist back then, back in those days. I remember I used to read it every single day on the subway as I would make my way to work to the studio to work for you. But I wonder, who are you reading these days? Where do you go if if you're not reading the National Review or anything like that? I mean, who really are like the sort of leading lights that you turn to in these dark times to sort of draw inspiration from?
Well, I still read LouRockwell.com every morning. I don't read every article. Some of them are not of interest to me, but most of them are. I still read The Economist every week. It's a lot of reading. And again, you don't need to read every article. I read this wonderful publication, which is put together and owned and operated and edited by ex-economist reporters and editors, called The Week. I found out about The Week when then Pope Benedict XVI was seen reading it in the back of his limo as he was being driven from one part of Vatican City to another. And since then, I've been devouring it. It is a compilation of the most important stories of the preceding week, presented with rare but effective neutrality, both sides of every issue. Every story that's in there, you get both sides of it. Major editorials and major domestic and international pieces. I've also become very fond on a daily basis of the Financial Times, which covers Europe far better, sorry guys, than the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. But I still read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post I read digitally. I can't get the hard copy out here in the sticks where I live.
Good to know. Judge, one last thing before we let you go. Your show, Judging Freedom, has been a tremendous success with millions and millions of views, more people than ever tuning in to hear your political viewpoints on your talk show, Judging Freedom. What have you got coming up for us next on your wonderful show?
I have quite a day today. I have Scott Ritter himself at 11 o'clock Eastern on the Evan Gershkovich arrest in Eastern Russia. That's the Wall Street Journal reporter who is now charged with espionage in Russia, a young man from New Jersey. Also on the leaked DOD documents. And then at 3 o'clock, I have the man that Judging Freedom viewers love to hate. That is Jack Devine, 40-year career in the CIA, who always mouths the government's line, and who this morning, for the first time in the year and a half that he's been coming on the show, admitted, not to me yet, but in one of his publications, the Russians are inching westward in Ukraine. Something he would never admit until today. So I'm looking forward very much to both of these. I wish I could read aloud the comments that people say about Jack Devine during the show, but it's pornographic. I can't read it.
I'll have to check that out a little bit later, Judge, when I'm not live. Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of the Judging Freedom podcast, read his weekly columns at judgenap.com and never miss a single interview of his every Wednesday here on the Wake Up America show. Judge, we salute you. Thank you for your time today.
It's good to be back with you, Austin. All the best.
Good to see you. All right. What do you think of Judge Andrew Napolitano? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. I'm going to go to a commercial break. When I get back, I'm going to speak to Phil Cristofanelli, state representative from the state of Missouri. Or should we legalize sports betting here in the state of Missouri? God, why are we still having to fight over this? I don't know, but we'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great. Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me pups build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Have you been enjoying the show so far? And what do you think of Judge Napolitano? Good stuff, huh? We've always got the best guests here on the program, which is why I'm excited to introduce to you my next awesome guest. His name is Phil Cristofanelli. He is a state representative here in the state of Missouri. That's 2 state representatives from Missouri here. Glad to have Phil on the show now. Good morning, Phil. Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be with you, Austin.
Glad to have you here. I guess I'm going to open it up with a comment from one of our listeners on the sports betting topic that we brought you on here to discuss, because we still haven't legalized that here in Missouri for some reason. Introverted Mystic says that, or Inverted Mystic says, I think sports betting is fine as long as it's in your range of affordability. Now, whether or not you think the government should step in, that's up to you. I disagree with companies getting involved in betting, but that's a personal opinion. So where is sports betting at here in the state of Missouri?
Well, we passed it out of the House of Representatives. I've carried sports wagering legislation for, I think, 5 years now. And this happens just about every year. We get it through the House. It's overwhelmingly in favor. and it gets to the Senate and it gets tied up in a bunch of Senate politics, and then it dies there. And so that's happened year after year after year. And it seems to be happening again this year. We brought it up on the Senate floor, I want to say last week, and they tossed it around for several hours, but couldn't come to an agreement on some other unrelated gambling matters, and so they decided to lay the bill over. And so we need to get them to bring it back up and get the job done, because people want to do this.
What is the worst case scenario here? I mean, in any like authoritarian fever dream, what is the argument against it? What do they think is going to happen if you can bet on the Chiefs? I mean, can't you just drive across the border to some state, one of our border states, and make the same bet that you can't make here in Missouri? I mean, what's the worst that could happen?
That's right, Austin. And I think you and I both know that sports wagering is happening, with impunity all across the state of Missouri. As you mentioned, people are driving across the border to do it legally in other states. Almost every state that touches us has legalized sports wagering at this point. And there's also a vigorous market of illegal apps. So people just download the app on their phone. They do the sports wagering through the app. The money goes through some Cayman Islands account or somewhere in Eastern Europe, and God knows where that money ends up. But people can do it pretty easily through technology, and the only one that's left out of the whole deal is the state of Missouri. And so there's no oversight on making sure that minors aren't getting involved, making sure that the bets are fair. None of that's happening because we haven't passed the legal framework, and ultimately none of that money ends up in our state coffers to address our critical needs like infrastructure and education.
And there's always special interests on both sides and anything like this. Whenever there's massive amounts of dollars involved, Phil, I mean, it just so happens that, I happen to believe in liberty and individual liberty, which means that every once in a while, a big corporation just happens to agree with me because it happens to be in their best interest. But I don't believe that because the corporation is paying me to say that or wants me to believe that. I'm doing it because I actually believe it. But Phil, there's plenty of big corporations on the other side of the argument that wants to keep sports wagering illegal. There's a lot of money being poured in to keep it illegal because, frankly, big corporations, a lot of them, they don't like competition, do they, Phil?
No, they generally don't. And I think what we're experiencing in the Senate right now is a debate about how much gaming we should have in the state of Missouri. And I think our local casinos believe the amount of gaming that we have right now is just enough. And there's probably some casinos outside the state that believe we could have a little bit more gaming in the state of Missouri. And so they seem to be fighting over that. I think they're all fine in principle with sports wagering, but the broader approach that our state takes to legalized gambling is something that's a subject of heavy debate. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of organized interests that are looking to get a bigger piece of the pie. And I think that's what this comes down to.
How far do you think a bill would go to outlaw gambling in churches in regards to old folks' bingo parlors?
Well, as you know, Austin, bingo is actually a constitutional right in the state of Missouri because we've turned our constitution into largely a statute book. And so bingo features prominently there. And so our hands may be tied as the legislature to modify the bingo regime. But I think that, when I go out and talk to regular people and go door to door, people want to participate in sports wagering, and they're done with all the silly excuses in Jefferson City as to about why we can't pass it. This is a prime example of legislative dysfunction. It has demonstrated how our state gets left behind. And, we're not really the show me state because we want to see everybody else do it first. We're the show me state because our legislature is so incompetent that it can't pass basic legislation. And so we just end up doing everything last.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Missouri State Representative Phil Cristofanelli on the show today. We're talking about sports wagering here in the state of Missouri. I hope that it passes. I mean, knowing that we have a Republican supermajority in the state, you would think that something like this would pass easily. But my guess is that there are probably some key Republicans standing in our way.
There's a pretty vigorous debate within our party, and it's on two fronts. There's a number of social conservatives that don't want any gambling at all, and so they believe that the casinos operating on the rivers is too much. We should probably get rid of them, is in their opinion, and sports wagering is just an extension of that, and so they're not in favor. And I'd say there's probably like 30 House members, 35 House members that kind of fall into that camp. And then, there's people that support, even more gambling. And so they want to see the video lottery terminals and, slot machines in convenience stores and things of that nature. There's a lot of debate about that. So there's a number of people that want to do that. And then there's a handful of people that just want to do sports wagering. They don't want to do anything else. And so those are kind of the three camps right now, and they're all maneuvering against each other. And the result is we haven't done, any of the above.
Phil, I'd like to segue to another topic here because you brought up, Missouri lagging behind. I'm kind of jealous looking at states like Arizona and other places around the country in regards to education freedom bills that are being passed out of legislatures and being signed by Republican governors. Here in the state of Missouri, I'm speaking of Republican opposition. I've seen some people on the right here in Missouri actually standing against us in regards to school choice. Where do you come down on that issue?
Well, school choice is why I ran for office. It's been my primary focus since I came in the legislature in 2016. I was the author of the Missouri Empowerment Scholarships Accounts Act, the first school choice bill that we've passed in our state in over 20 years. That bill has now empowered over 1,000 students to attend a private school of their choice and leave their failing government school for a private option that better serves their needs. But really, we're just scratching the surface. As you mentioned, if you look at Iowa, if you look at Arizona, if you look at Arkansas, just to the south of us, if you look at what's happening in Florida, you're seeing universal school choice bills passed where every parent, regardless of where they live, regardless of what their income is, regardless of, how they're going to school right now, they can access a scholarship account to attend a school of their choosing. That's financed either through direct appropriation or through a state sponsored tax credit. And those have been really incredible programs for students and kids. Not only have they injected competition, which I believe is a good thing, into the education marketplace, but they've allowed parents to tailor their kids' education directly to their needs. And I think, after what we've seen with COVID, and some of the really terrible declining test scores from our public institutions across the state, the time is ripe for universal school choice, and I'm hopeful that we can get something done.
Same here. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. I'd love to hear your thoughts on school choice and sports wagering. Send them in again at 573-319-1586. Phil, anybody who knows me knows I'm a big fan of gold and silver. I kind of like the idea that Missouri is considering, bills to legalize gold and silver as legal tender or allow the government to, being able to pay your Missouri state taxes in gold and silver. Now, I know that Scott Fitzpatrick, who was the former treasurer, current auditor, is kind of like, well, not necessarily the best idea because, we need something that we can kind of, pay bills on a day-to-day basis with and things like that. Maybe it's good for our state pension funds to hold gold and silver and stuff like that. Where do you stand on those bills?
I think it's an incredible opportunity. I, much like you, Austin, got my start in politics helping a fellow named Ron Paul run for president. And he, made a very excellent argument that the future of fiat currency, if you look at its past, is very dim. And it always kind of works its way to zero because government cannot stop itself from inflating the money supply every time it has a problem. And so the strongest societies in our history are those that have tied their method of exchange to a hard product like gold or silver. And I think the more that we can encourage people to use gold and silver backed assets in order to engage in exchange, the stronger we will be. as a country. And I think competition, like in all things, in currency is a good thing. And there's no reason why we couldn't have competing currencies. And even as people have moved away from gold and silver, we're seeing technology fill that void of competition in the currency space. And I think the future is ripe for a non-government, a non-centralized currency system that bases its value on free exchange and not government fiat.
Phil, do you have an opinion on the push by central banks to create CBDCs, central bank digital currencies? What are your thoughts?
Oh, I think that's terrible. I mean, a central bank has demonstrated, our central bank is the Federal Reserve. For the longest time, we couldn't even get an audit of the Federal Reserve. And I still don't think they've done a full and fair audit of the Federal Reserve. Keep in mind that this is a private bank governed by private persons that has more control over our economy and our day-to-day life than virtually any of our elected institutions. With paper dollars, they have been more than willing, especially during COVID, to astronomically expand the money supply to the great benefit of their banker constituency and to the great detriment of the average person. And the idea that we would allow them to do that with a digital currency that is tied to nothing but a ledger on their internal account is maddening to me. And I also, worry considerably about the government's ability to control your spending once they've essentially eliminated cash. If we're in a cashless society, if your social credit score goes down too far, well, they just switch off your Venmo account or your digital wallet or whatever that may be. And that's a really scary and dangerous place. And it used to be that these things seemed like conspiracy theories, but I just went on the Federal Reserve's website, and you can go on there now. I was on there yesterday because I was thinking about this, and they have a whole white paper about a central bank digital currency and how wonderful it would be if we just let them have one, and all the great things that it would do. And I saw, and you should take a look at this. I'll send it to you later, Austin. There's a paragraph where they essentially say one of the benefits of central bank digital currency is they could fix economic redistribution. So I don't know exactly what they mean by that or how that's going to help with economic redistribution, but it seems like that's the direction they're heading, and I'm entirely opposed to it. I've been kicking around. I was in my friend Senator Curtis Trent's office yesterday, and we were kicking around ways that we could prevent the state of Missouri from ever participating in a central bank digital currency system. And so look forward to some potential legislation on that. But I think it's a terrible idea. I hope the government never does it, but since they love to do terrible ideas, I kind of expect them to.
Phil Cristofanelli, he's a lover of freedom. He's a state representative from the state of Missouri. Phil, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go today?
Well, we've got a busy week ahead. There's 4 weeks left in session. Hope springs eternal for all these bills. So, if you want some sports wagering, call your senator up and tell him to, get their act together and get it passed. So appreciate you having me on, Austin.
Absolutely, Phil. We hope that you'll come back and join us when you have updates as well. State Representative Phil Cristofanelli, ladies and gentlemen, give him a big round of applause. Thanks, Phil. We hope to talk to you again real soon.
Happy to be here. Take care.
Thanks very much. All right. Well, here's the thing. So I have got to say, number one, the guests on this show, absolutely terrific, but they don't come from anywhere. They don't come from nowhere, right? They come from somewhere, right? Like, what is Austin doing? He's booking thing. But here's the thing. It takes a lot of work to get these people on the program. Sometimes they approach me to be on the show. Doesn't happen a whole lot. Most of the time, I'm like busting my ass all day long. Let's go. I gotta find some guests, get some good topics, all this kind of stuff. I'm working my ass off to give you the absolute best show possible. So what I want to ask from you in return is, would you subscribe to the show? Help give us a monthly donation. There are perks and benefits of doing so. We've got several different support levels. You can sign up through the YouTube channel right now for $2.99 a month. Become a Freedom Ninja. Great way to support the show. You can also become a Cantina Crew member at $9.99 a month here on YouTube. Or what I would love to ask for you right now is to go to wakeupamericashow.com, go to the support page there, and sign up to become a member of Peterson's Patriots at $17.76 a month. I want to grow this show. I want to make new shows. I want to have a show before me, a show after me. I want to build the Libertarian Daily Wire. You can help do that and support this channel right now by becoming a subscriber. Can we get at least one person to subscribe before the end of the show at 9 a.m. right now over on YouTube at just like a $2.99 a month level? I would sincerely appreciate it. You can see that the people over there who've got the ninja symbols next to them, they're already subscribers, and I'm super grateful for them already. If you're not a monthly subscriber to the show, I would certainly appreciate it. Don't forget, you get a 20% discount at the apforlibertyshop.com website. When I come back, I will be talking about another topic, and we will see what it is, because there it is. Yes. Oh, this is good stuff. Cats are more libertarian than dogs. Cats are more libertarian than dogs. Yay or nay? True or false? Cats are more libertarian than dogs. All right. Hopefully you guys are going to sign up for a monthly subscription when I get back. And I'll be back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the roaring 20s brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored, because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every $1 we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
You have any real-world experience?
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Well, we did it. Barney Styles. Yeah. Woohoo. Just joined the monthly sponsorship club. You are a freedom ninja. Now, Barney, I've got some good news for you. Not only are you based and red-pilled, but because you are a monthly sponsor, that means you get a 20% discount at the apforlibertyshop.com store. Oh, baby, yeah. Congratulations to you. When you want to buy anything from apforlibertyshop.com, you're going to get an exclusive coupon code that's just for you that you can use for 20% off the shop, Barney. So do me a favor, send me a DM either like on Twitter, or don't use Facebook because like I never see my messages over there. They're always like banning me and suppressing me. So either hit me up on in my Twitter DMs, probably the best place, or send me a text message to the phone line for the show, 573-319-1586. And I will send you the coupon code because you get 20% off now. So any of your purchases, 20% off, which is a pretty good discount, don't you think so? At AP for Liberty Shop. Thank you, Barney. I appreciate that. You're helping to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, keeping the Wake Up America show running, and we are super grateful for that. We've got lots of great sponsors. Robbie is a sponsor. Tolly Owens is. Elizabeth Fanning Press, Andy Opperman, all of our good friends are sponsors of the show, and we certainly appreciate that very much. Becoming a monthly sponsor for the program helps us to have a stable source of revenue so that we can say, hey, we know we can invest this much in the show this month. We can grow by this month, this much. My hope is that right now we've got a part-time employee. I'm hoping to bring him on full-time starting in the summer so that we can be more productive, put out more content. Now that I'm back from vacation, I'm going to start putting out more cool 60-second shorts videos. My goal, for those of you who are sponsors, you might already know this, but I'll fill it in for people who are thinking about becoming sponsors if you're not. My goal is to move from all of the content that we're producing here to producing more long-form documentaries, libertarian documentaries, as well as libertarian movies. And I've actually completed a script that I am shopping around, and I'm starting to get some bites from people about potentially producing a full-length libertarian movie. So thank you for being a part of supporting that. And that's what you can see in the medium and long term from the Wake Up America show by becoming a monthly contributor sponsor. So thank you very much for that. It'd be great if we could get one more before the end of the show. So you're definitely on a list now, Barney Styles. That's right. The Patriots list. All right. But don't worry. That's Barney Styles' house right now. All right, before we go, let's finish the show with something strong. Debate. Cats are more libertarian than dogs. I think that's a great debate question. Do felines contribute more to human liberty? Arguing in the affirmative in this article from Reason Magazine was Jason Russell, who says cats don't take orders from anyone. It's not that cats don't understand human speech or can't be trained. Cats just do what they want. Cats don't do what you expect them to do. But if cats don't come when we call them, it may be because they're just busy doing something else, right? So, Ayn Rand was a cat owner. That's a strong argument in the affirmative. She wrote actually in a letter to Cat Fancy magazine, I love cats in general, and I own two. I can demonstrate objectively that cats are a great value. Ayn Rand's so funny. She was referring to pictures that she enjoyed in the charter issue of Cat Fancy, which was just one of those, installment in the centuries of cat art that humans have enjoyed. Today, that enjoyment usually takes the form of grumpy cat memes or videos of cats doing silly things, right? So we enjoy cats, so they provide us value, right? So that means cats are libertarians. I'm not sure yet. But cats also provide economic value too, right? Cats work on farms, ships, and elsewhere to scare off and eat rodents and small creatures. And when their employers desire it and the cats consent, they accept scritches as well. But I'm not sure that that's the strongest argument in favor of cats being libertarians, but I do like scritches. Meanwhile, far too many dogs are playing dead and leeching off the public dole, writes this author. The worst are dogs in government work. Yeah, very true. Like the canine cops who will narc on you for victimless crime like drug possession. A cute kitten stuck in a tree may mean a call to the fire department, but animal control employees used to be called dog catchers for a reason, because the number of parks have been growing recently in the last decade. The vast majority have taken up public dollars and space that would be better used for human purposes. I don't know about that. When cats work in a government job, they're usually trying to keep government buildings mouse free, not driven by a sense of public service, but a self interested desire to catch rodents. Public employee cats are actually saving taxpayer dollars by reducing money spent on pest control. Cats don't ask the government to build them parks. They hardly ask their owners for any special space either. Maybe a nice cat tree, but even the box from the last Amazon delivery will do. Cats find comfort and joy in things humans and other animals have no interest in. Cats, like libertarians, think for themselves. In the Netflix show The Sandman, one cat says to another, "I'd like to see anyone, prophet, god, or king, persuade 1,000 cats to do anything at the same time. What could possibly be more emblematic for a group of libertarians?" In the negative, argued Peter Suderman, but unfortunately I don't have time for that. So you know what? We'll just have to save it for tomorrow when I explain why dogs are more libertarian than cats. All my dog fans out there, let's hear it, yo! Big dog fan myself, actually. Hey, thanks so much for supporting the Wake Up America show. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in, for being a part of the revolution, keeping the revolution going. The revolution continues with me, AP, and you. We appreciate all that you do to support the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, support the Wake Up America show. We'll continue to keep bringing you the absolute best guests in news, content, and liberty here on the Wake Up America show. We'll see you tomorrow at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.